Hey guys, so today I'm here to talk to you about my latest investment in real estate, but it's not the kind of real estate that one might think. So as someone interested in property and real estate investing, and something that I've been looking to get into for a while since I bought my first home here in Spain about a year and a half ago, at the end of last year, 2022, I bought a storage unit with the intention of it being a rental unit to generate passive income and to make money from renting it out to others. So in this video, I'm going to tell you all about it, why I made this investment, has it been a good decision, and what are some of the learnings that I have picked up on the way. So let's get right into the video. Alright, so those of you that watch the channel know that I take a particular interest in property and real estate, and it's something that I've been looking to get into for a while. But as I'm sure you can imagine, managing a residential real estate investment, takes a lot of work, and it requires a lot of initial capital up front. Two things that I don't necessarily have at the present moment. However, I was contacted by the estate agent that sold me this property, and he told me about one of these storage unit projects, or trasteros as they're called in Spain, essentially to try and sell me a storage unit. So I said, okay, yeah, let me go along, have a look. And the project was quite interesting, and he told me the prices, and I did a quick profitability calculation, but it didn't seem interesting. But after doing a bit more research on the topic, I found better prices and what I believe to be better yields kind of in the center of Madrid. So after doing my research, running the numbers and looking at a few different storage units around Madrid, I ended up picking up one for about 7,000 euros in one of the central neighborhoods of Madrid. Not a massive storage unit, it's about 1.5 meters squared by 3 meters high, but you can actually get quite a few things in there. So for the average person who maybe has too many things that they can't keep at home, or for a business person who has maybe a few items, machines or tools that they want to store away, this would be an ideal solution. And so that was my mindset going into it. But as part of my research, what you realize, and when you speak to the people selling kind of the storage units, you realize the devil really is in the detail. Just little things, that you don't think make a big difference, but at the end of the day do. Like, when can the person access the storage unit? Can they get in with their car? Is there a loading or unloading bay? Is it monitored with security cameras, for example? This can be the difference between someone buying or renting, or not buying or renting a storage unit in Spain. So I really had to think about this very carefully when I bought my storage unit, and I made sure that with everything that mine had, it served its purpose, and that someone could get in whenever they wanted. Their stuff was safe. So I bought this at the end of the year. It did take me a little bit of time to rent it out, and I'll explain that a bit later in the video, but I eventually have the unit rented out, and it's been rented out for about half a month now. So yeah, 2-3 months later, and I finally have someone in, and now that's generating me a monthly income just from renting it out. Not a lot, but any form of passive income is very welcome here. So I'm very happy about that. So now let me go into a bit more detail about the specifics of why I decided to invest in a storage unit. I'll tell you a bit more in the details as to why I made this decision. So storage units, believe it or not, are in very high demand in Spain. When I mentioned this to a couple of people in Spain who are my friends, or people who helped me through the process of getting this, a lot of people mentioned that people do accumulate a lot of stuff and don't have enough room to store it. So a storage unit such as the one I've bought is a typical solution that people often turn to in such times. A lot of new properties that are being developed now as well also come with a storage unit attached to the property, kind of built into the building. So for example, in the apartment that I used to live in before I bought this one, I also had a storage unit that was dedicated to my apartment. And when I did my less is more minimalism challenge video a couple of years ago, you'll have seen that storage unit as well, because I actually used it to store some of that stuff that I was getting rid of. And so particularly through the pandemic times that we've been through, where people have bought a lot of stuff or have too much stuff and they don't have the space, a storage unit like this can particularly come in handy. There was also an article in the Spanish press at the end of last year talking about this high demand for storage units, calling them a treasure to anyone that had them, and how particularly valuable they were. And so as my first investment into property for the purpose of generating a profit, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next point now, with the demand for storage units in Spain, I saw this as a good potential opportunity. And so now, speaking from the perspective of property investing to generate a profit, as I mentioned in the intro, Residential real estate, it can be a good investment. You can generate a lot of return from it. You can generate some really nice cash flow from it. But there's a lot more management involved. There's a lot more things that can go wrong from that perspective. And so now, speaking from a real estate investment opportunity, I saw this as a nice baby step, if you want to call it, into the world of property investing, because residential real estate is something that I would like to invest in one day. The cash flow that you can make from it is very healthy, some good ROIs that can be explored, and it really is something that can generate a high degree of financial freedom. But of course, as I alluded to in the intro, there's a lot of management involved. There's a lot of, problems that can arise potentially, and kind of the leverage aspect of it is something that, number one, because I have a mortgage on this property, it is difficult for me to access right now. And number two, is something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, even though it's something that I would consider, I am quite a risk-averse person. I'm a bit more of a conservative investor, so I wouldn't like to go all in on the leverage aspect of it. Whereas with a storage unit, the amount you're spending is so small, it's less than the money that you'd initially put down for a property in general, and then you have a small amount of costs associated with the administrative fees and the ITP tax essentially that comes with it as well when you buy it. It's very manageable, no leverage required here, and you can still get a nice return on your money, although the cash flow isn't as high as it would be in residential real estate. As I said, passive income is always welcome. There are also very minimal costs associated with a storage unit in Spain as well. Yes, you have comunidad like you would with a property in Spain, but because my unit is in a kind of a big local, as it's known in Spanish, like a commercial property, then the comunidad for the whole property is kind of divided into coefficients, and then it's split across the owners. So it works out very, very low, like less than 50 euros a year probably. So very, very manageable from a maintenance cost perspective. Coming back to my investor profile as well, as I say, as a conservative investor, the commercial real estate option in my current situation, though it is something I'd like to explore, it would be a stretch for me, and I probably wouldn't sleep as well at night doing it as I do with a storage unit, because the possible opportunity from owning this storage unit and renting it out, I see massively outweighs the potential of something going wrong. As I say, the initial investment was very small. It is still a property, it can appreciate in value, and even if the entire investment were to go to zero, I would still be fine financially, fortunately, if that did go wrong for whatever reason. God forbid, touch wood. And overall, this in theory, of course, it should be a less problematic and demanding investment from a time perspective. Once it's rented out, there are much fewer possibilities and probabilities of something going wrong than compared to a residential property. So from that perspective, the probability that you have a problem with something is very low. And if you were to have a problem, then generally it should be able to be resolved very quickly. This we'll see with time, of course, but that is my expectation. So as I say, the opportunity, of the storage unit to appreciate in value over time and to generate cash flow from a rental perspective, I see it greatly outweighing kind of the risk of something going wrong. All right, so now I've told you all the good stuff. Of course, there have been some challenges. There have been some learning experiences from this process, and I am going to share them with you as well, of course. So the first lesson is that although storage units are indeed very valuable, they are valuable to a point that there are major companies, such as a company called Blue Space, that are dedicated to renting out storage units and even storage boxes to people. And Blue Space is just one example of this, but there are many other companies doing this as well that have such a big scale. They buy out entire commercial properties, convert them into storage units, and you can find them all over Madrid, all over big cities in Spain, and rent them out. And because of the scale of the business, they can offer very attractive pricing and discounts to clients as well. So although you can do this as an individual, you are competing with some very big and very powerful players, so that can be a challenge. In addition, what I've learned is that if you're like me and you have just one storage unit, you are at a bit of a disadvantage when you take into account, other players and the needs of customers. Because I had a lot of examples of people who would call me and, the storage unit would either be too small or too big for them or too expensive or whatever. And they would ask me, oh, have you got something else? And then I was in the position where I could only say, no, sorry, this is the only one I've got. So what I would have done differently if I were to do this again, and what I will perhaps even look to do now, is go for more than one storage unit at a time, so that I have different options to offer to different people. And I think these first two reasons that I mentioned are part of the reason why it took me so long to find someone to rent it out to, because I only had one storage unit to offer, and because there was a lot of price competition, and because there are a lot of other big players out there, there is no shortage of options for people to turn to. So that's a learning that I've taken away from this process. But as I say, fortunately it's worked out in my case. I have found someone who's renting it out at the time being. But yeah, perhaps it is something I will look to do, acquire more storage units, either in the same commercial space across Madrid or whatever, so that I have something else to offer in case if I have something that's not suitable for a potential customer, or if I just want to grow my storage unit empire, if you want to look at it that way. Another learning I had now, of course, you hear everyone saying, property investing is not passive, and you're like, yeah, how hard can it be? Bit of paperwork, visit the property, all that kind of stuff. Trust me, it takes time. When you have a potential customer that wants to see your unit, and you've got multiple that want to see it at the same time, you have to make yourself available so that they can see it, and that takes up your time. Then of course you've got the contract matter to deal with as well once you find someone, and then perhaps even as is happening now, I'm making some administrative changes in the contract I have with the current client. So it's not at all passive. There is stuff to do. As I say, was to be expected, but you do have to be prepared for it. And another thing I would perhaps do differently is look for something that's more accessible to me, either closer to home or, have something that's closer to transport networks, because to get from where I am to Madrid takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So imagine having to do that to show someone like the unit at short notice, which is another point that I'm not going to discuss, is that people often want to see these things on short notice, and unlike a property, they expect, I see it, I can be in it the next day. The customer expectations are different. Like, they expect everything to be a lot more rapid, a lot more flexible, kind of, moving in, moving out of the unit, something that they expect just because of the nature of it. And so that's something I've learned as well, that I have to be more flexible in terms of being able to show people it. In the future, maybe if I was to buy another one, then I would buy it closer to home, or if I buy more and it gains significant traction or generates enough income to merit buying a car, then I could perhaps get a car, and then the whole thing would be a lot easier as well. But even with a car, it would still be a bit of it would be a bit long to come from outside of Madrid into Madrid just for that. So there you go, guys. There were some learnings, there were some challenges, but overall, I think the positives outweigh the challenges, at least to this point, and I hope that they will do so going into the future as well. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about my investment, and if there are any other alternative real estate investments that you have pursued. Till next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.